We are being invaded, and the invasion is continuing, unabated and deliberate. It is being organized and designed. I grew up in New York City. New York City was never like this. I never saw the Mexican flag being raised in New York City, or any other flag besides the flag of the United States of America. What does it mean to raise a flag in another city? It means we're taking over. This is our city. Why is this happening? We've been warned so many times. In 2002, Patrick J. Buchanan came out with a book titled The Death of the West: How Dying Populations and Immigrant Invasions Imperil Our Country and Our Civilization. In the introduction, we read these words: "Pat, we're losing the country we grew up in." Buchanan wrote, "Again and again, in the endless campaign of 2000, I heard that lament from men and women across America." Close quotes. In 2005, Victor Davis Hanson wrote a book, Mexifornia, A State of Becoming. He saw this invasion, but no one listened. A few years later, former Colorado Governor Richard Lamb delivered a speech, "I have a plan to destroy America." It was about the perils of multiculturalism. No one really listened. Now we see where this invasion is going. Thousands upon thousands are entering our country illegally, by the busload and by other means of conveyance. It's obvious we have a problem, but a Massachusetts Democrat shocked a reporter by repeatedly insisting the border is secure. Representative Ayanna Pressley was being interviewed by CNN host Jake Tapper. He asked Pressley about the border and said something needs to be done about the crisis at the border. "No doubt about it," she said, "our border is secure, and we are in the midst of a humanitarian crisis, and we have to fix a broken system," Pressley said, before she was interrupted by the host to see if he had heard her correctly. "You think it is secure, or is it not secure?" he asked. Pressley repeated that America is in the midst of a humanitarian crisis and that federal investment must be secured to support migrant families. Tapper asked for clarification a second time, and a second time Pressley said, "Yes, the border is secure." Pressley needs to really find out what is going on in her state of Massachusetts. CBS News Boston reports that the Army-Navy game hotel reservations have been canceled due to the influx of migrants in Massachusetts. Tens of thousands of veterans normally pour into Boston for the game. Tickets to the game sell out quickly, and hotel rooms become a hot commodity. Biden's open border policies have backfired, and if left unchecked, will do great damage to the Democratic Party. I pray that that happens. Biden smells the coffee and has plans to resume construction of a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, a move slammed by immigrant rights groups and environmental protection advocates as, quote, "a horrific step backwards." According to the New York Daily News, Biden, who previously pledged not to build another foot of wall during his administration, was answering questions about a decision by the Department of Homeland Security to waive 26 federal laws to allow for additional border wall construction in Texas. There are a lot of things that are not right in America. The most evident and tragic indicator of America's soul sickness is abortion. Most cultures find great joy in their children. Our culture wants to destroy them. Here's a perceptive analysis of the abortion madness that is festering in our country.
Both sides were at least pretending to try to improve the lives of the people who voted for them. But when you wind up in an election where the two top ballot initiatives are, one, encouraging people to kill their own kids, and two, encourage their kids to do drugs, who's benefiting here? I'm serious. The one unalloyed source of joy in your life is your children. The point of life is to have children and to watch them have grandchildren. Nothing will bring you joy like that will. Nothing comes close. Nothing comes close. Would you trade your job for your children? Would you trade anything for your children? Of course not. And so anyone telling you don't have children, kill your children, is not your friend, is your enemy. And by the way, it's a very recognizable promise that they're making you because it's as old as time and it's chronicled in great detail throughout the Hebrew Bible. It's human sacrifice, which rears its head about every 4 chapters and which is singled out for approbation every time. Of all the sins the ancients committed, that sin, every single time it's described, is called detestable, at least in the RSV. Detestable. God singled that out. Throw your children into the fire. Now, why were people doing that? Because, of course, they believed they were getting power and contentment and happiness in return. All it's going to take is to sacrifice your children. This is as old as time. Every civilization on the face of the earth has engaged in it. Every one. Not just the Mayans and the Aztecs, but the Scandinavians, my people. No, it's true. Even the Swedes did it. I know. It's embarrassing. But the archaeological record tells us that human sacrifice, the sacrifice of children, the killing of children, is the one constant in human civilization. Now, you answer the question, how can that be? How did all these civilizations, at different points of the compass that we know had no contact with one another, reach the same conclusion that in exchange for killing their own children, they would be happy or safe? Probably not a conclusion they reached organically, right? It cuts against the imperative of evolutionary biology, which is to continue the species. And those of us who grew up in a secular world being taught that people are motivated by instinct designed to continue the species, pause at that and say, wait a second, how does killing your own children advance the cause of perpetuating the species? It doesn't. In fact, it's an attack on that. So it's not a natural human function to want to kill your own children, actually. That's an idea, an impulse that was introduced. Outside forces are acting on people at all times throughout history in every culture on the planet to convince people that if they sacrifice their children, they will be happy and safe. And that's exactly what this is. This is a religious rite. This is not a policy debate. They're not telling you that some girl got raped at 13 and she needs to go to college and therefore, unfortunately, we need to abort the child. No, that was 20 years ago. Now they're saying abortion is itself a pathway to joy. Really? So this is not a political debate. This is a spiritual battle. Yes. There's no other conclusion. Take more drugs and be happy? Right, okay. Less conscious, less aware. Give your soul over. Dull yourself. Become a robot. Really? Those are the promises they're making? Okay. So how do you respond to this? And that's what I've been thinking about all day. I went on my morning walk with my dogs in Maine this morning, from which I derive much wisdom every morning, my wife and I. And by the way, I'm not a theologian. I'm the opposite of a theologian, so don't take any theological insight from me at all. I'm just a reader, okay? And here's what's jumped out at me. So my second favorite character in the New Testament is Paul. And I think, from what I can tell, the bulk of the New Testament is written by or about Paul. He's a leading character in this drama, I would say. And I think just an amazing person, because he was not a good person. He was like a horrible person. He was on his way to murder Christians when he was knocked down and blinded, and then pivoted on a dime and devoted his life to spreading the gospel. So I find it very inspiring that a truly awful person could become one of the great people of all time. That's reassuring. But the two qualities that really jump out of the story of Paul's life, first and most obviously, is the courage. This is like the bravest guy ever. There's not a letter he wrote where he didn't have a sword hanging over his neck. He expected at any moment to be murdered, and I think the consensus among historians is, in the end, he was. He was murdered, as were all of his friends. But he lived with the certainty that he was going to be killed for his beliefs every day. And he was totally unbothered by it, completely. He was just moving as fast as he could in the time allotted. He didn't know how much he had, but he just kept going, but he was never afraid. As his boat was sinking in the Med, in his year-long journey, and everyone with us freaking out, totally fine. Oh, we're shipwrecked, no problem. Never afraid. And by the way, why would he be afraid? He believed his fate was sealed. He was going to join Jesus. He was going to heaven. He was totally convinced of that. And it seems to me maybe the one takeaway is, like, that's table stakes in Christian faith. Fearlessness. That is actually the marker of it. Are you afraid or are you not? Well, if you're afraid, then you're kind of not doing it right, are you? Like, there's no excuse for being afraid.
While things look bad, we must always remember that we are on the winning side. There are positive signs that America is taking a turn in the right direction. In an Epoch Times report titled, "Parents, Teachers Start Winning Court Battles Against Secret Gender Transition Policies," we read that there is a revolt against government policies that many say usurp parental authority. May the revolt grow in size and intensity, especially a revolt in prayer and kingdom work. Friends, are you praying hard, working hard, and being a good witness for Jesus Christ? In Joshua 1 verse 9 we read, "Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee wherever thou goest."